we were supposed to continue with some of the principles that is needed, not all principles, of course, matters of fiqh, matters of deen, there are principles, and if we know these principles, it'd be easier for us to get to remember always the specifics. But I would like to do, inshallah ta'ala, because we talked about something that is very important, and a lot of people might not have clear understanding of it, is to do two things. First, I want to stress something, and then if there's any questions regarding to the matter of the madahib and the taqleed, we should get it out of the way before we continue, inshallah ta'ala, because this is such a controversial issue. But before the question starts, it should not be understood of what we heard that the matter is to be fawda, to be chaotic, that everybody can pick and choose whatever they want. As we said, this is not permissible. And it does not mean that any simple person can just look into the evidence and make his opinions. This is not what it means. It also does not mean that all the madahib is no good and each person should have his own madhab. This is not what it means. Right? All of that is wrong if a person do that. But what is wrong is for the person to blindly follow a certain individual or a certain madhab and thinking that all the truth is in this. And when the matter is clear to him that this is the way the Prophet ﷺ, he will still choose to follow the opinion of one or the other. And again, the matter of taqleed is a necessity. At certain times, certain situations where the person has no way but to imitate, then that's fine. But the thing is that the person should, his concern, his attitude is that he's following the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And the other question is it permissible to do the talfiq of the madhab? Meaning, can you make one mas'ala from this madhab, and another issue from another madhab, another issue from another madhab? If it's based on desire, it's not permissible. If a person picking and choosing based on his desire, based on what's easier, based on whatever there is, it is not permissible. But otherwise, what's wrong with that? So if a person wants to know how to, for example, make sujood, or how to stand in the salah, where to put his hands in the salah, right? And he, after asking the people of knowledge and seeing the evidences and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he sees that the correct opinion is one way, right? And then in another issue that he get to want to ask about what to do in that other method of the salah, does he has to say, well, since I followed this madhab in this position, I have to follow the same madhab in the other position. I have to follow the same madhab in all of my entire life. The question is, where did you get that from? Is this something mentioned in the Quran or the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that will order if you ask someone or if you follow someone from a particular opinion, you have to follow the whole madhab and the whole? There's nothing in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that says that. None of the four Imam said that, right? And it is the responsibility of the people of knowledge, and this is the bigger responsibility unto them. It is not permissible for them to blind follow. And once the matter is clear to them, they have to teach the people. They would still follow the principles of the Imam that they studied the fiqh by studying his principles. But when it comes to the different specific issues, they have to make sure that this is the right opinion, that they believe that when they meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the best of their capability. So I hope that these things are clear, and this is how we should. You find some people, when he has an issue, he would take the effort to go ask a alim, for example, from the Maliki madhab, because he is someone that he thinks that he is following the Maliki madhab. Again, the common person, there is no such a concept to him, because the madhab meaning that the alim or the student of knowledge is studying the fiqh based on the principle of one of the madhab. Because he has to go through first grade, second grade, third grade, and so on. So he's following the principles from the issue of learning. But the masses of the people, they have no madhab. Their madhab is the madhab of their ulama. Their madhab is the madhab of their scholars. Right? And we also, one last thing, we have to differentiate between the matters of fiqh that we do daily, that you would, for example, how to make the salah, how to pay the zakah, these things, and the matters of bid'ah and innovation in the religion, and some of the contemporary issues, the contemporary differences of opinion, the nowadays differences of opinion. These are three issues. The first one, in matters of ibadah, how to make salah, how to make hajj, these things that the ulama in the past had differs in some rulings and things like that, how to deal with these things. the person should seek always the correct opinion by asking the people of knowledge and putting the effort. And it doesn't matter if this person of knowledge is from this madhab or that madhab. As long as he knows that this person of knowledge, he follows the evidence once it's clear to him. When it comes to innovations in the religion, there is no differences of opinions. If it's a matter of innovation in the religion, there is no such a thing as madhab or madhab, because there is no bid'ah in the madhab. Right? Because if a person is, and this is what confusion to the people. You find someone that, for example, claims that he's following the Shafi'i madhab. But then he's doing an innovation in the religion that the Prophet ﷺ never done. People might think that this is the madhab of Imam Shafi'i. It's not. And you would never find among the A'imma something that is clearly like this, in which most of the innovations in the religion that are practiced was not done by the 4 Imams and everything. So we have to separate between the two. First one is easier than the second one. Right? Innovations, there is no tolerance to it. And also when it comes to the contemporary differences of opinions, about things that might become somehow new, right? Like for example, the banks issues, riba issues, right? What to do with these things? If you go back to the early generations of Islam, somebody would say there's no banks. So you have to know what riba is. And that means you have to seek some knowledge. So you have to ask the people of knowledge. In these things, a common person should not take the opinion of 1 or 2. He should see how the ulama, the consensus of them, of how they all agree on one thing, and not to take the opinion on 1 or 2, and it becomes mandatory on the person to do that. Right? And to have the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we heard, and the person, as long as he do the best he can, then he is saved from being blamed. But once he's following his desire, it's easier, there's this or that, that's not permissible. And differences of opinions are not an evidence that this is permissible to do or not permissible to do. If we can just get this concept clear, we will have so many of our problems resolved, right? Because now it's the fitna, the matter has differences of opinion, that means don't talk about it. Just pick and choose whatever you like. This is false, this is not permissible. None of the ulama of the deen said that, right? So that means we have to put the effort to find the truth in every single matter, right? And if the person falls short, when he's having this sincerity, and he asks the people that he trusts their knowledge in the religion, he is safe, right? So, if there is any questions with regard to this particular matter, not any other issues, please, but this particular matter of the madhab and things like that and the differences of opinion, we need to discuss it so that the matter should be, inshallah ta'ala, clear. And we can mention some practical examples for example. No.
Sometimes when we start Salat Jama'ah, some brothers, instead of joining Salat Jama'ah, they start praying Sunnah. And the excuse always they are just Imam Ahmad followers, okay? Imam Hadi, okay? So, is that considered just innovation or just?
The issue of when the Jama'ah started, especially at the Fajr time, some people, they would enter the masjid and they would start making the Sunnah prayer while the people are making the Jama'ah. And the concept behind this, it is true that some of the ulama had said that this is something to be done, as long as the person would catch the first rak'ah with the imam, because Sunnat al-Fajr is a very stressed sunnah. And the Prophet ﷺ would never miss the Sunnat al-Fajr, whether he is traveling or not. Right? So he would make sure that he would pray it. So they say a person comes in and he knows that he would catch the salah in the first rak'ah before the imam makes ruku' because it's going to be long anyway. So pray the sunnah and then make it quick, and then you join the jama'ah and there's no harm on you. Right? This is the opinion. When we apply what we mentioned, right, the other opinions, and this is the majority of the ulama, Jamhur of Ahl al-Ilm, is that this is not permissible. And why did they say that it's not permissible? Because the Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith, إِذَا أُقِيمَتِ الصَّلَاةِ فَلَا صَلَاةَ إِلَّا الْمَكْتُوبِ. If the salah is established, the iqamah is being made, then no salah except the one that is obligatory. No salah meaning, no salah valid, no salah is to be done except the salah that the iqamah has been made for. So based on this hadith and based on the principles of all the imam, the person then should not do that. Now you have an opinion based on analogy for the most part, and there is no evidence that this has happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and you have the rest of the majority of the ulama on the opinion, no, you should not start a salah after the iqamah has been established. And this is almost like as if it's consensus among them. If the main salah that the adhan was called for, right, not any jama'ah, the first jama'ah of the masjid, the authentic jama'ah of the masjid, right, the one that the adhan has been called for, once the iqamah has been established, for someone to start the salah right after that, this is not permissible because of the hadith clearly states that, right? So in that case, a person should not do that. If a person is already in the salah, right, and the iqamah has been established when he started the salah before the iqamah, right? Also, there is differences of opinion. Should he complete it or should he walk out? If they say, if he's in the first rak'ah, he should walk out because he did not establish the salah yet that he's praying, and because of the hadith that was mentioned. If he's in the second rak'ah, finish it quickly so that he would join the jama'ah before the takbirah of al-imam. So we have to differentiate also between the two. If someone after the iqamah being established, but he was in the salah before the iqamah, even if he was in the first rak'ah, it's an easier matter. If he finishes the salah, still the best for him to leave the salah and no salam or anything, just to walk out, because the fard is established, and the hadith clearly mentioned that, right? But that opinion, for those who said no, he should complete the salah completely, their opinion is a little bit stronger. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تُبْطِلُوا أَعْمَالَكُمْ, do not break your deeds, right? So it's a little bit stronger, but still it's weaker, right? Why? Because this verse, and we have the hadith, if the salah is established, then no salah, except what has been established. So in that way, the correct opinion is that the person leaves the salah and join the jama'ah, right? So this should be clear, that a person should leave the salah, walk out from the salah. Unless it's the second rak'ah, he should finish it quickly, because now, if we apply وَلَا تُبْطِلُوا أَعْمَالَكُمْ, the salah is not there yet if it's in the first rak'ah. The salah is there if he's in the second rak'ah. If he's in the second rak'ah, it means that he's already about to finish the salah, he should finish it. How to deal with this issue, right? If somebody is coming to the masjid, and now we know the ruling, right? So if a person would say, well, I'm sorry because I follow this madhab. A common person, either he's a common person or a knowledgeable person. If he's a common person, it's not valid for him to say, I'm following a madhab. If this brought doubt to him, then he should need to go work and do some homework, because he might say, well, this person speaking is not credible to me. How would I know that he's saying the right thing? For example, then it's not valid for him to say, I'm satisfied with my situation. No, he has to do the homework, and he has to go and ask the people of knowledge, and what's the evidence behind this? And this is deen. This is not something to, as if you're buying some potatoes or so. It's deen, it's religion of Islam, and the person has to take serious. This is wahy, revelation from Allah. So if he's one of people of knowledge, and he believes based on the evidence that he has, that the correct opinion, for example, that no, a person should pray, he's a person of knowledge, and he not blindly following. He thinks that this is the truth, which is a different situation. Right? How to deal with such a person? Again, if he is someone that you don't have any credibility to him, he might not listen to you if you tell him that this is not proper, you should, because the Prophet ﷺ said that. If he gets to know and he refuses, it's a dangerous thing for him, but at the same time you should be kind to him. Why? Because he's been raised and his whole life is doing this, and he sees people are doing this, and he thinks that this is the deen, and now you're changing it when the matter is like that. So a person has to be patient and to develop in ourselves the attitude that we follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ by the sayings of the ulama also. Not our own interpretation of things, but the sayings of the ulama. So the majority of ulama say one thing, and one has a weak opinion, we should not follow the weak opinion.
So Imam Ahmad is answering from what they are saying, right?
Imam Hanifa. Right, because he said if the hadith is authentic, then throw my opinion against the wall. And the hadith is authentic. If the salah is established, then no salah is valid except what has been made the iqamah. And actually, one of the things, if you don't mind, let me say, which is, I know that there might be even a little bit controversial, is when people after the salah, yes, I was just going to say something. No.
What about the immediately people when they finish the fard, if they have not prayed the sunnah, they go immediately. Is this permissible, or you have to wait for the sunrise?
After Fajr, if a person did not make the sunnah before Fajr, it is permissible to pray right after Fajr, even at the time of the salah being makruh or disliked. And the reason for that, why is it permissible? Because it happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ in the authentic hadith, where somebody was praying after Fajr. The Prophet ﷺ asked him, why you praying or so, and he said that I did not pray the Sunnah, and the Prophet ﷺ approved that from him. So if he prayed right after Fajr, it's okay. If he waits till after sunrise to be away from the differences of opinion, mashallah, is good. So because it's a matter of permissibility. But one of the issues, for example, after the Salah, you know, the collective dua, right, after the obligatory Salah. And people might think that this is from the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa, when in reality it's not. It is not from the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Abu al-Izz al-Tahawi is Hanafi, the one of the Aqid al-Tahawi. He said that some of the Ahnaf had invented this dua after the Salah, in which Imam Abu Hanifa is free from this. So it's something that they developed later, and it became part of the actions, but in reality it's not. It's not the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa. It is not the opinion of the madhab. Why? Because it was not practiced at the time of the Prophet ﷺ in such a way.
About the dua after Salat, somebody said like a hadith about Aisha radiallahu anha, that she saw the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam behind the wall, like, you know, like he's doing dua, which is, they didn't mention which book he got this hadith from.
The question is with regard to the dua after the salah. We're talking about ibadah that we need to have two things in it. That the ibadah has to be ibadah in its original form, and it has to be, we have to know the sifa, as we said before, how it was done in the same exact way. So when we talk about dua, the Prophet ﷺ would make dua anytime. Dua is part of the deen. Dua is all ibadah. So at any time a person wants to make dua, sure, no problem. So this is the deen of Islam. But then we get to the second one is, was it done in the same way that it's done and practiced now, in which people in a collective manner, right after the Imam makes the Salah, and people would make a collective dua, and they would raise their hands, and they would say certain things. The whole thing we're talking about. We're not talking about the dua. Dua is part of the deen. But we're talking about the whole thing, the way it is done in that whole thing of it. Was it done like that and practiced at the time of the Prophet ﷺ? If somebody says yes, where is the evidence? There is no evidence. If somebody says no, then we would say, was it good enough for the Prophet ﷺ and his companions not to do it? If they say yes, it was good enough for the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, we would say also it's good for us, enough for us not to do it. Because you have to get the permission of to do things like this on a regular basis. But say, for example, someone, after one of the salawat, he had so much dire need to make a dua. Should he say, no, it's innovation in the religion to make dua at this time? No, of course not. And nobody would ever say that. So a person at now, for example, somebody goes sit in the corner right there, and he wants to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's nothing wrong with that. Right? But once you make it, and ritualize it, and make that at 5:17 every day, we should make sure that we make 5 minutes dua, then you're going into the bid'ah and innovation in the religion. Right? But at any time a person wants to make dua, there's no harm. This is a good example that we have now differences of opinion. So we need to learn how to deal with it and what the etiquettes with it. We should not be abusive, for example, and say that these people are deviants. This is no. We should not do that. Right? And at the same time, we should not take the matter easy. And we say, either way is good, and no matter what the person do is good. No, we should not do that also. What we should do is, since this is a matter of the religion, we should do our best. What if we do not able to do what our best is? Then as mashallah you said, you ask the person of knowledge, what's the evidence behind that? Right? And if he give you the evidence, right, that this is not permissible to pray the salah after the Fajr, and you are convinced, and you follow this, mashallah, you are doing the right thing. Right? But then later on, for example, right, you asked, and then you get another perspective of it. And this is not being going back and forth or hesitant. No, this is actually guidance. This is what guidance that we need to do. And this is consensus among the ulama. Somebody changing his opinion, it is not someone that is not confident or someone that is playing with the religion. No, someone that is increasing his guidance. So for example, nobody is to claim that this is the truth and that's it. But for example, we have now, the issue is, yes, it's not permissible for us to pray after Fajr, after Asr. But once we get to know that there is an authentic hadith where the Prophet ﷺ approved someone praying after Fajr, the Sunnah prayer. That means this to take care of it, right? And also a person can pray it after sunrise. He can make it up after sunrise. And the other issue is, which is more in rewards? The Sunnah prayer or the Fard prayer? Definitely the Fard prayer. The Fard prayer, not just to do it, but to establish it in the perfect way. Missing Takbiratul Ihram, to miss saying Allahu Akbar behind the Imam, this reward that you missed, and this is no exaggeration in it, is far more in rewards than somebody praying for a month Nafla prayer, or even more than that. Why? Because this is Fard, and this is Sunnah. Fard is the most beloved deeds to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so you should perfect it. And the other thing is, if this was the case, weren't there people among the Prophet ﷺ, the companions, would be late for the Salah? Definitely not all of them came right on time. So there's not even one narration that they would do this in such a way and they had to ask the Prophet ﷺ or so. So, you know, if a person knowing all of this, he should then, you know, not say that since I'm this, that means I have to follow this method. This is wrong. But you should say, well, to the best of my capability, and I don't know the differences of opinions or anything, but to the best of my capability, there's hadith here and this and that, for example, he would take that. And at the same time, we should not have the bad attitude towards these things and make it a source of fitna among people, right? Because a simple person getting to know that, yes, and if you follow the principle, it's not permissible to pray after Fajr. This is a valid point, but it doesn't mean that they're all correct. No, one is correct and one is not correct. But the not correct is not committing a sin if he's a scholar in religion. If he gets it by the efforts and the principle, he will not reject the hadith. If he rejects the hadith, it's a different situation. But the thing is, we should have the etiquettes in the way that we advise. We advise and we are patient in the advice and everything like that. Which is, again, it's a lesser issue than matters of bid'ah in the religion. If it's a bid'ah in the religion, that means we still have to advise, of course, but there's no validity here because there's no differences of opinion if the matter is innovation in religion.
There is one of Somali warlords who stopped the women covering the head.
The face or the head?
The niqab, yeah. No. Then when they asked the media, he told, we are Shafi'i, we don't need to, yeah. Yeah, and the people could get confused. It's Shafi'i or madhab, which madhab allow, which madhab.
The issue, it's another good example of differences of opinions, whether the face of the woman should be covered or not. Right? Is it mandatory or not? This is another very differences of opinions. Which the ulama had different opinions. Is it mandatory to cover the face? Or it's not mandatory, it's only recommended. Right? But nobody, none of the ulama of this deen, the proper ulama, none of them said that covering the face is not good, is not appropriate, is bid'ah, for example. You know, all of this, nobody ever said that from the ulama. There are one of two opinions only. Either it's recommended or it's mandatory. Right? And based on the evidences, and this is a valid differences of opinion. So, if, for example, somebody chooses that it's okay to show the face, there's no sin. But it doesn't mean that it's permissible for men to look. It is not permissible for them to look, they have to lower their gaze. And the ulama, they say that it's permissible to show the face. They say that if a sin would come about as a result of showing the face, then it's mandatory for her to cover her face. Whether she's beautiful, for example, or she knows that the men their religion is weak, and they would look and they would stare and things like that, and she knows that's going to happen, then she has to cover her face. Either covering when she goes out, or once she knows that there are men present, she has to do something. You know, and this is the practice of the Muslim women since the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Those who used to show their face even, they did not take the opinion that means they would come and speak to the man like this, and you know, looking at him and he's looking at her. They would never do that. It means they would, if they pass by the gathering of a man, you would find the shy Muslim woman always, she would do that for her face and walks. Right? And this is why how things are since the time of the Prophet ﷺ, right? And one other issue is, which is one of the principles, when is it recommended to be away from the differences of opinions? If you have differences of opinion. If you can be away from the difference of opinion, it's a good thing. So in that case, for example, somebody wants to save himself and to be on the safe side. For example, he doesn't have much knowledge, right? He would see this, he would say, well then covering the face is the safe side. And definitely that's true. And you would find the alim saying that it's permissible for the woman to show their face, and you find his wife and daughters are covering their face. People would say, well, how come your family is covering the face? He considered it mustahab, it's recommended. Recommended doesn't mean that you leave it. Recommended, that means that you do it. And it's good to do it, right? No.
Yeah, the same thing over the, I'm sorry, I'm coming back to the Sunnah, before the Friday prayer. Some of them said it's only Friday. Salat al-Jummah, there's no Zohar.
Right.
Somebody said, no, you have to make for Sunnah.
Okay.
So what is the correct?
Another good example of differences of opinion. Does Jum'ah has a Sunnah before it? Right? So when a person in Jum'ah and the first adhan is called, right, and then people stand up and they make 2 rak'ah or 4 or whatever, and then the second adhan is called when the imam is on the member. Is this Sunnah or not? You would find some said that it's since there is no Dhuhr. So based on Dhuhr, you pray 4 rak'ah before the Jum'ah. The majority of the ulama, of the Jumhur of the ulama, and the opinion, there is no Sunnah of Jum'ah before. The Sunnah of Jum'ah is after. Based on what? The first opinion that you make 2 rak'ah or 4 rak'ah Sunnah before Jum'ah, based on analogy. That Jum'ah is like Dhuhr, and since there is 2 adhan and the Prophet said, بَيْنَ كُلِّ أَذَانَيْنِ صَلَاةً, that between every adhan and iqamah there is a salah, and this is adhan and there is iqamah here. So you have time, make 2 rak'ah or 4 rak'ah, right? And the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever prayed 12 rak'ah in a day and night, Allah will build the house for him in Jannah. And the day of Jum'ah, if you don't pray anything before it, you missed the 4 rak'ah that you used to pray for Sunnah to Dhuhr. So these are evidences that people, it's recommended for them to do that. But you find the majority of the ulama, the other opinion is, they would say Jum'ah and Dhuhr cannot be based in analogy in qiyas, because Jum'ah is not Dhuhr. Jum'ah has nothing to do with Dhuhr. This is called Jum'ah, and it's a different salah, and it has khutbah, it has 2 rak'ah, and this and that. And the other thing is, if there's difference of opinion here now, right? So a person that has a higher level of wanting to know the truth, he would say that the ayah says, فَرُدُّوا إِلَّهِ وَرَسُولُهُ, then we refer it to Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there's difference of opinion. If we go back to the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there's no difference of opinion in this. What was the khutbah at the time of the Prophet ﷺ of Jum'ah? There was only 1 adhan. There was not 2 adhan. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was 1 adhan. And the Prophet ﷺ would get up onto the minbar, and the adhan would be called, and then people would listen to the khutbah. The Sahaba used to come early to the masjid, as we know the rewards of coming early to Jum'ah. And they would pray 2 rak'ah, tahit al-masjid. And they would pray another 2 rak'ah, and another 2 rak'ah, another 2 rak'ah. And this is one of the sunnah that has been not practiced actually. It is virtuous to pray before the imam comes into the Jum'ah, if the person has the space and not bothering anyone and it's not crowded, is to make as much number of rak'at as he can. And there's no disliked time in Jum'ah. Dhuhr is disliked to pray right before Jum'ah, but Jum'ah no. You can pray 2 rak'ah after 2 rak'ah as the companions anhu used to do before the Jum'ah. But there was only 1 adhan. At the time of Uthman anhu, when he made the 2 adhans, it's not bid'ah. Right? The 2 adhan is not bid'ah. Because Uthman anhu did it for a purpose, and that people have become so much, and one the other adhan to call the people from the market because they don't hear the adhan, and people when they hear the adhan they will come. And so it's not bid'ah. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, عَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي وَسُنَّةِ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ مِنْ بَعْدِ. Stick to my sunnah and the sunnah of the right. He got the Khalifa after me. Uthman anhu is one of them. And the companions anhu, they didn't have differences of opinion when Uthman anhu established that. Nobody said, why you're doing this? So the 2 adhan is not bid'ah. But the way people dealing with the 2 adhan, that what is now, the question is, what is now the purpose of the 2 adhan? Is it to inform the people that the salah is getting closer? Even if it doesn't, no problem. But at the same time, what is the salah that people would stand up and do in between the 2 adhans? It was not done at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. It was not done at the time of the Khulafa al-Rashidin. So the best way is the person, he can still pray then. If he comes and he prays before he sits, if he was praying before the first adhan and the adhan came and he continued to pray after the first adhan, there's no harm in that. But to make it that is part of a sunnah that we have to pray 4 rak'ah before the Jumu'ah, there's no clear evidence from the way of the Prophet ﷺ that this was done. And again, if somebody does that, right, it's something that is of a weak opinion, but again, the matter is we should not hate one another as a result of that.
I have a question. We have Farad Namaz and then we have Sunnah. Will a person who pray Farad and not Sunnah, will he be punished for not praying the Sunnah?
There's Fard Salah and there's Sunnah Salah. Would the person be punished if he does not pray the Sunnah Salah? The Fard Salah is one of the 5 daily Salah. And the Sunnah Salah is the 12 rak'ah, basically, the Sunnah Ratiba. 2 before Fajr, 4 before Dhuhr, 2 after Dhuhr, 2 after Maghrib, and 2 after Isha, and Witr. And there is the Nafil Salah, the other Salah done at any time a person he wants to make Salah. So the Fard is mandatory, whoever leaves the Fard is of course a major sin. The Sunnah Salah, if a person leaves it, it is not a sin. That means, and this is consensus among the ulama, he's not committing a sin. But when they say that, why do they say that? They say it because if you miss it, what should you do? Should you repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Should you expiate for your sin? Should you? No, you shouldn't do anything. But it doesn't mean that since we say that it's not a sinful thing to leave it, that the person would leave it. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ would do it regularly unless he's traveling, and the companions of the Allah would do it and never misses it. So the person should not open a gate of shaitan into him. And witr, it's something that is very stressed, and a person should not also miss it. Although the majority of the ulama are of the opinion that witr is not mandatory, and because of the hadith of the Bedouin that came and asked the Prophet ﷺ of the obligations, he did not mention the witr that is part of that obligation. But at the same time, we find, for example, Imam Ahmad and others, they would say that the one that leaves the witr, the Rajul Su, they would say that he's an evil man. Although Imam Ahmad did not take the opinion that the witr is mandatory, but he would say he's an evil man. Why would he leave witr? That means he has other issues that he's been neglecting. So, and this is something that the Prophet ﷺ never missed, whether he's traveling or not. So the person should make sure that he prays them all the time. But if he misses it sometime, does not need a repentance. But he needs to keep on praying. But it's not a sin to leave it. It's not a sin.
It was mentioned that the Muslims can be divided into the ulama and then the non-scholars. And the ulama, they follow the madhab, they follow the principles of the madhab, and the layman has no madhab. Because on the assumption that the layman, his madhab is because he's from Bangladesh, he follows Abu Hanifa, or Algeria, he follows Imam Malik, for example. But what if this person is not a layman, not necessarily like an ignorant layman, he's trying to study, and he prefers a certain madhab, for example, the madhab of Imam Malik, because he believes that because Imam Malik calls Amal Ahl Medina, that is the closest to the haqq. How does that work into this whole situation?
If a person not really a layman, but he can have some understandings of the people of knowledge, can he choose the madhab of Imam Malik because he choose the actions of the people of Medina?
Any madhab,
right? Or any madhab that he choose.
As long as there's a deen, as long as he believes that this madhab, because this principle, right, is closest to the haqq.
Right. There's nothing wrong in that if he is studying matters of fiqh. If he wants to study fiqh, and he wants to study the fiqh in Maliki, there's nothing wrong with that. But he would go through the proper channels of studying it, meaning that he would study the fiqh of Imam Malik based on the principles of Imam Malik from a shaykh that is specialized in fiqh Imam Malik, and he would study that fiqh, right? And he would study the fiqh, and he is convinced that if the issue has no evidence in the Quran, and no evidence in the Sunnah, and no consensus, he would follow the actions of the people of Medina, inshallah. He's following the principles here. But if there's an issue that the madhab of Imam Malik says something, but he finds out that the hadith is authentic opposite to that saying, and if you follow the principles of Imam Malik, you would find that the opinion should be the opinion of Imam Shafi'i. You should take the opinion of Imam Shafi'i in that particular matter. If he has this attitude, mashallah, he's following the Sunnah. So the one that's studying, he can do that. And you should not make it a fitna among the Muslims. And the reason why you find the people from Algeria, people from Egypt, people from India, they are harmonious in their countries, right? They issue, they go to the religious court and give them the verdict. MashaAllah, this is nothing wrong with that, but it's the responsibility of their ulama to make sure that the matter is not blindly following, that they will tell the people the truth in every matter.
Can you recommend, like, if someone wants to learn, this Islam, can you recommend like a system, like a good system to learn Islam?
A good system to learn the matters of the deen. For example, if we're talking about fiqh, somebody wants to take the matter seriously and want to learn the deen. Of course, he has to master the language of the deen, which is the Arabic language, right? And this is not the language of the Arab. This is the language of the deen of Islam, right? So we have to master the Arabic language. Otherwise, the person will be always muqallid, right? Because you're always imitating the translator and the interpretation and this and that. So he should spend the time and be patient. It takes 3 years, 4 years, it doesn't matter. And while he's studying the Arabic language and mastering it, he should, at the same time, learn the matters of the religion that he needs. Ramadan comes, he needs to know the rulings, salah, and so on. And after mastering the Arabic language, he needs to study the matter of fiqh, for example, from a well-known, trustworthy scholar of the religion, and whether he is from this madhab or the other, as long as this scholar is not someone that is going to be blindly following the madhab. If the matter is clear to this alim that the evidence is opposite to it, he will teach that to his students. But he will teach him according to the principle, one madhab or the other, which is absolutely fine. And that depends on where the person is. For example, if a person is in a place where the ulama in his locality are of one madhab or the other, right? And if, for example, there are ahnaf, following the madhab of Imam Hanifa, and they're not blindly followers, they're scholars and they follow the dalil and everything, right? But he wants to study the madhab of Imam Shafi'i. Sure, but then if he starts to study it, he's not going to find anybody to teach him. So he's going to waste his time, right? And if he finds one, that one might have some deficiency, so he would have hard time. So in that case, if he's in that locality, he's not going to go anywhere. Study from them. And study, but with the same principles and with the attitude that I will follow the truth whenever the truth is clear to me, and so on. If you talk, for example, in other places where now more ulama have served a certain madhab, this is what you need to study more. Served it meaning what? You find their books have been authenticated, the hadith of it. Many ulama had explained it. You'll find so many work on these books. So for someone that is starting to study the knowledge, he should study in that regard, because he would find so much help in it. Not because this is more truthful or the other, but because this has more work in it. Like for example, this way, nowadays, for example, if you talk about in Egypt, for example, because I'm from Egypt, you find someone wants to start to study the religion seriously, it will be said to him, study either in Madhab Imam Ahmad, Imam Shafi'i. Why? Because you will find so much of the ulama teaching in both madhahib, and they're not blindly following, right? And the books are being served well, right? And things like that. So it depends on each person. Each person should ask a person of knowledge, what should I do? Depending on how well known or the people are following with.
While we were talking about the Friday prayers, Salatul Tayyibul Masjid, right? After the Shaykh gets up for the khutbah, I've seen, I just want to know your true opinion on this. That they come and pray the Tahiyatul Masjid. Now, to my understanding is khutbah is part of the whole Friday prayer. So it's once it's started, is it the obligatory part of it? And to what I've heard, it said it is, and Tahiyatul Masjid is not, so it should be...
A person entering on the Jum'ah prayer and the khutbah is being, during the khutbah, should he pray before he sits or he should sit right away? This issue has differences of opinion. And why would I say that? So that we understand mura'at al-khilaf, that we understand that the matter has difference of opinion. Not to take this as an evidence that do whatever you want, either way is good. No, that's not permissible to say that. But in that case, a person will try his best to see what's the truth. If you ask me, because of the time and we don't want to get into the details, because of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when a man entered the masjid and he sat down, the Prophet ﷺ was giving the khutbah and he stopped the khutbah and he said, did you pray? He said, no. He said, get up and pray. So in that case, a person should always pray as a rule at any time. If he wants to sit down, he has to make the 2 rak'ah before he sits.
My question is because Shafi'i, Hanafi, Maliki, we have to keep one all the time, or we can choose like a divorce issue is a different opinion for different ulama.
Right.
So sometimes we feel he is right and we can follow them, or some different issue. We have to choose only one or.
It's a good question. Does the person have to follow one madhab, and we talked about it before, one madhab all the way, or he can pick and choose? And especially in matters of divorce, for example. Some people, they would follow one madhab very strictly, but now he divorced his wife 3 times in once. And according to his madhab, it's finished. His wife, she has to marry someone else, right? For the intention that it's forever. And if divorce happened between them and they want to come back together again, then it's permissible. But when he digs and he sees that it's according to the other madhab, that the 3 in one session, in one time, it's considered to be one only. So he'd say, let me take this because it's easy. Is that permissible? It is not permissible to do that. Meaning, it is not permissible to pick and choose based on desires. But in that case, he should go and ask someone of knowledge that he trusts his knowledge, and whatever he tells him, he should do.
I think it is Prophet Mbraceislam pray like every like Hanafi, Shafi'i might be same thing as like a Sunnah Prophet Mbraceislam did. So we can do different ways, different time. Like
some things it has been authentically proven that the Prophet ﷺ did it differently. But other things you would find one issue has not authentically mentioned, in which authentic hadith says that he did this. So the person has to do the effort. And he still will be following the principles of one imam or the other, but this is the knowledgeable people. Right? So as for example, Imam Mbraceislam, I think, when he was following the Imam Abi Hanifa, a big Hanafi scholar, but he used to pray like this. Right? Right, and he even wrote a poetry in it, saying that I'm Hanafi, and I'm putting my right and my left on my chest and so on. Meaning, what does he mean by I'm Hanafi? That means I'm following the principles of Imam Hanafi, right? It doesn't mean that did not take him outside the fold of the madhab. No, he's still, but this is alim, right? For the common person, he's not even supposed to say that I'm Hanafi or Maliki. He follows the people of knowledge. There's a question from the sisters, and the Maghrib is coming up. If you don't mind, and then inshallah we should have more time for these questions. But although it does not pertain to the matter, but I will answer these questions briefly, inshallah, although it's dangerous. When it comes to the fatwa. We're not giving fatwas here, right? We're just basically mentioning the sayings of the ulama, right? Is a man allowed to divorce his wife if he has no reason? Divorce is something permissible. It's not haram to do divorce. And the hadith that the most disliked halal to Allah is divorce is not an authentic hadith, right? But anything that a person do, he should look at the outcome of things, right? If the outcome of one action or the other would bring harm, although it's permissible, then this action might not be permissible if it would bring major harm. So in these issues, people should ask the people of knowledge. Each situation is different. Sometimes divorce is the best thing to be done. And some other cases, it's not the best thing and it might bring so much harm. Right? And this is what the hadith in Sahih Muslim, that the shaitan, he is so happy when people are divorced, and when one of his helpers come and he said, I kept with him till they separated, he would embrace him and he says, you are the one, you are the one. And he did not care that much with the one that he told them that I kept with him till he committed zina and he didn't do nothing. But the one that divorced, he said, you are the one. Although it's permissible. Why is that? Because as the ulama, they say, a household as a result of a divorce, right? You can basically have a generation that are helpers of shaitan. Small individuals growing up to be from the people of shaitan because they don't have stability in their life. But in which if somebody committed a major sin, if he repents, he destroys all the work of shaitan. Shaitan starts over again, right? Because he only wins if the person dies in that state. But when there's dysfunctioning families, as a result of divorce, for example, that means you have someone from the beginning that is going to be from the helpers of shaitan. Although in its original status, it's permissible. So it has to be done. Each case, a person should ask the people of knowledge, and that's why we are in the difficult times. Why? Because where are the enough numbers of scholars of the deen that people are in more need to the scholars of the deen than the eating and drinking, right? And if you see the number of people of knowledge compared to the masses of the people, right? There's no comparison here. And if people, and the problem is they're not taking the religion seriously, right? So as a result of that, they don't care. So they don't care about if they go to this job or to marry this or to do that. They don't ask about matters of the religion. So they don't need to ask the scholars. But imagine that the Muslims here, if we say here in Chicago, 500,000 Muslims, or I don't know how many are there, if they're all the religion something that is mandatory in their life, and they're taking the religion serious, would the scholars in this city will be enough for them? People will be in chaos. And that's how difficult situation that we are in. It's not because the ulama is not important, it's because we do not take the religion serious. And our weak iman would make the person doesn't care. He goes to the job, haram, halal, it doesn't matter, right? He does not ask whether it's haram or halal. Imagine all of them, they have to make sure that it's halal, especially in the environment that we live in. Then the people that are present of knowledge, they won't have time to eat and drink and sleep, right? And that will not even be enough. So it's the duty of the Muslims to have and to work on someone to make people of knowledge, to have people. This is more needed than anything else. This is the best investment that people can do, because these are the leaders of the Muslims, to show them the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Inshallah, the rest of the questions, should I answer? Well, there's no time. Inshallah, we'll answer them later on. There's 3 questions in English. Inshallah, we'll answer them later on. Inshallah, we'll stop at this point. And tomorrow, inshallah, we'll continue. And we didn't talk yet about matters of purity or salah. But these are very important foundations that we have to be clear on, so that when we talk about other matters, the matter will be clear. So inshallah, tomorrow we'll continue after the Dhuhr prayer. The Dhuhr prayer tomorrow is at 12:40. Inshallah, because the time changed. So
Adhan will be called in 3 minutes.
The tafsir will be, there's tafsir.
I don't know. They say that for Salah al-Dhuhr.
They announced it already?
Must be. Remember?
After that? Inshallah, we'll have tomorrow after Dhuhr. We'll delay the tafsir. So after Dhuhr, inshallah, we'll continue the program.